Elgin James. You co-created Mayans M.C, which is the spinoff from Sons of Anarchy, and it tells the story of a motorcycle gang and the Central Reyes family trying to reckon with what this lifestyle means for them and their loved ones. And you yourself came from a background that it did include gang violence.
Hmm.
How much of you is there in these characters, especially Easy, who is the main character?
Oh man, it's all I think like 100% of myself in everything, like in every character, from Adelita to definitely Easy to the character Coco that Richard Cabral brilliantly plays. But then what you give as you give 100% of yourself on the page. The other writers give as much as they can of themselves, and the actors come and they give 100% of themselves, and it becomes this thing you couldn't do alone. But it all started, yeah, autobiographically for me, because it's trying to talk about. I mean, we get a lot of. I think there's been some flack in the past for sure, and I think it's particularly true the first two seasons when people are like, "You're just perpetuating these black and brown stereotypes, right? That have been happening forever. Black and brown people being portrayed as criminals." The difference with our show of what we want to do, and I think what we've been able to start to achieve, is everyone else has been telling that story forever. Everyone else has been telling that story. White storytellers have been telling that story forever about black and brown people being criminals. Now we have people on our show like myself, like other actors like Richard Cabral, Clayton Cardenas, Joseph Lucero, who actually grew up in this cycle of incarceration, of violence, of not being safe in your home, of finding solace in the street, in a gang, of learning to express yourself only through violence. So this was a time of like, oh, we're trying to tell our story. Like we're trying to tell what it's like, and it's not what people fantasize about. It's not this wish fulfillment of violence with no repercussions. It's all about repercussions. It's all about, it's like this body bag of shame that I carry walking into any room I ever walk into, about the things that I've done, about the things that I've been part of, the things that have happened to me, about this cycle that I've been caught in. So to give a really long answer to your very simple question, it's like on the page with each character trying to get all of that, like all of your heartbreak, all of your joy, if you have any, all of your hope, and then mostly just in anything that's just broken inside of you on the page, to then these brilliant actors come and pick up and make it flesh and blood.
And it makes me wonder, like how much different Hollywood would be if people from who had more a wide range of backgrounds, for better or for worse, the good and the bad things
Mm-hmm.
that happen to people, to have a pipeline into the industry. How many different stories we get, and of the stories that we are getting, how much more authentic they would be, what a different
Yeah.
perspective we might get on them might be.
I agree 100%. And it becomes, and I think that's the job for people that get a foot in the door. Walter Mosley, as I was saying earlier, who's on this, and he was an advisor and a mentor to me 11 years ago now. Maybe 12. I'm really bad at math, but basically helping removing obstacles for people. Like that's our job, to then remove the obstacles. And people always say it's like, to help lift, to help give a voice to. It's more just like remove this fucking huge obstacle that's in front of people, just kick it aside and bring more people up with you to tell the stories. And because it becomes there's a lot of really, really well-meaning people in this industry, of course. Like, I think it'd be hard to find someone who thinks of themselves as a racist or a misogynist or anything else, but all that stuff is inside. And I think if you're queer, if you're a woman, if you're a person of color, if you're particularly a woman of color, all of us get put into a box. I think we've always been put into a box. I think the last couple of years they put that box on a higher shelf and dust it off to show off about look at all these people, look at all this diversity, look what I'm doing, look at all this inclusion I'm doing. But then you're still stuck in that box. So the idea is, how do we now get the fuck out of that box to tell any story? And then my last bit, in total agreement with you, and I think it also comes down to socioeconomics. No matter the amount of melanin in your skin, no matter amount of what happens to be in your DNA of who you fall in love with, no matter what happens to, if you have two X chromosomes or an XY chromosome, so much, and I'll talk about it enough, is just straight socioeconomics. And those are the stories that also need to be told. And those are people that need to be telling stories.
And you mentioned, there being some pushback against the show for, how it portrays, black and brown characters. And I imagine that's one of the challenges of telling a story, especially around Latinx characters, because they've dusted off that box with all these identities. We still don't have that many Latinx stories on TV or in film, which puts so much more pressure on each and every one. And nothing can be everything to everyone, but when you have so little representation, it puts, do you feel sometimes that pressure to be that voice amongst
I think it's funny, and this ties into something that I was just talking about. A friend of mine who's a brilliant actor, and he was brought this project, and all of his team were like, well, I don't know, it just seems really dark, because I run into this all the time. It's so dark, like these issues that we're talking about. Like, where's the hope? Like, where's the solution? Like, let's have a solution. Let's be part of something that has a solution. We get that a lot. Where's the solution? And it's like, oh, fuck you. So you want to have us all be under the boot of this thing, then you also be able to tell the story. You want us to also solve it for you? Like, fuck no, we just have stories to tell. I think that's important. I think that comes, and it becomes a sort of this like unconscious bias of every project also has to be, there's just too much onus on everything. Some stories just need to be told. You're telling your truth. I think that's what art should be, is each artist telling their truth, no matter what that truth may be.
And this season, you actually took the reins as the sole showrunner for the series. How did that, that change in dynamic affect your, creative approach to the show, or did it at all?
It did a lot, because I just had watched for 2 seasons. We're also lucky that a lot of brilliant people, Kurt Sutter and a lot of other brilliant people, made the show Sons of Anarchy, and it lasted so long. We're so lucky that this actor named Emilio Rivera, that he became the heart somehow of this show, that they want to do this spinoff. But it was frustrating for a couple of seasons to be like, oh, we're still not telling, and I don't mean just even culturally, I just mean like through this world of telling the story, like the repercussions. And so we have a character, Richard Cabral, Coco, who murders his mom in the first season, and there's really no repercussion. There's nothing for it. And so Richie and I are obviously really, really close. So we'd be just talking like, oh, just give us our shot, man. Give us our shot. I think everyone felt that way. Like, we're so lucky. And happened to be on this populist and popular show. We're so lucky for the opportunity, the people that gave us the opportunity, but still just like, oh man, you just fucking wait. Just give us our shot, man. Just give us our shot. Season 3 was our shot with this person who, and also you have this gang that deals in heroin, right? And then we've never in this country in the grips, and has been for a long time, an opiate crisis, and we never talked about that and those repercussions, because we're too focused on the wish fulfillment, right? We're too focused on these other things, or not too focused. It was a decision. It was a voice. This is a different voice of like, oh, this is a reality of what happens, because we've seen those repercussions firsthand. And finally, we got our shot. Let's lay this out. This is it. Let's lay our hearts out. Everybody did, man. Everybody showed up. Everybody spilled it out, between the cast and the crew to obviously the writers. Like, everyone just came. And at the end, this long production, 91 days on set with COVID protocols, everything. And I was just like, I was in a trance, man. I was just like, we're all exhausted. I was just like, we said we would, and we did it. Like, that's it. Now it's up to the world. We said we'd do it. We said we'd be great. This was opportunity. We did it. We laid it all out. Now it's up to the world. And then the world didn't care, bro. It was weird. And then we did that. We laid out our hearts. And in the first half of the season, our ratings just got cut in half. Like, cut in half. And that was, I had to really mean what I said. Of like, we got to tell our truth. We told our truth. And it's not the truth that people wanted. Because maybe some people wanted it, like we talked about before, I'll put it into this, tell your story in this very digestible meal for us. And what was beautiful is we were lucky is other people came. Other people came and other viewers came. We ended up doing better than we ever thought we would. But it was really, in a way, it was beautifully bleak, because it was still like, yeah, we left it out there. Fuck it. That's it. And that's, I think, as opposed to, again, being put into a box of being someone who has a very crowded 23andMe, I have a crowded DNA, but being mixed, you're never really anything, right? You're never dark enough, never light enough for sure, don't speak Spanish, all those things. So I grew up, like, I found punk rock when I was 11 years old. So I'm always like, I'm a punk rock filmmaker. Like, that's my culture. I also obviously have these other experiences, and that's true, but I'll always be a punk rock filmmaker. And so it was so it was just glorious to have 300 people this season just being punk rock together, like fuck it, we're gonna tell our truth and let the chips fall where they may.
Well, I want to congratulate you for this season, and congratulations
Thank you,
on
man.
getting this season. The show is renewed for another
Thank you.
year. So certainly enough people cared to get the show.
Yes.
For
You
the
know who it
season.
was, bro? It was women. Women always come to save the day. Women always come to save the day. But yeah, thank you so much, man. Really, really appreciate it.
And thank you so much, and we will have you back soon for our group discussion.
Looking forward to it.